10 to 20 sets is optimal to maximize your muscle building potential, or so the science is saying anyway. People hear this and they instantly think more volume equals more gains, and that is definitely not the case. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how much volume you need, why volume is individual and different people respond differently, and signs of too much volume and signs of too low volume and what you can do about that. But before we get into any of that stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I cover all things muscle building and break through all of the nonsense noise in the industry and make it work for you to build your absolute best physique. So first up, we have the volume dilemma. So is 10 to 20 sets really optimal? What you have to remember is these studies bring together an average, right? So for most people, that probably works. 10 to 20 sets is good, right? But that's not everyone, right? I can grow my chest on less than 8 sets per week because it's a strong area of mine. I find it easy to connect with and I get a great stimulus from very little volume. So why would I push more into that area when I could maybe save back some of that volume to put onto my weaker muscle groups? Some people, clients, they need upwards of 20 sets, 20 plus sets to really see and feel progress happening. So we live on this spectrum, right? And everybody sits somewhere along there. 10 to 20 sets, yeah, maybe in general, 75% of people might fit in there, but you might not be one of those people. Does more volume equal more muscle? Yes, if you are able to recover from it. And that is the part that people miss. That is the part I'm going to be covering a little bit later in this video. The fatigue side of things is a big part, right? And if you can't recover from the volume that you're putting on your muscles, you're not going to be able to create those adaptations and continue to grow over the long term. And one of the biggest problems that I see all the time is people just blindly copying their favorite influencers program. But hopefully you can see how their circumstances might be very different to yours, right? They might not have a busy, hectic lifestyle. They might be able to be sleeping 9 hours a night. They might not be in a diet. They might even be taking a little extra, So you never actually know what someone's circumstances are. So you really need to dial into you and how things feel to you. And we'll get onto that later in the video around some useful ways that you can do that yourself. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the science behind lifting, I've broken it all down so it's really simple to understand in my free 12-week build guide. Click the link in the description and you can download it to your phone in seconds. Now, this is a big thing people miss because not all volume is created equal. It's only the hard sets that count. And what I mean by a hard set is close proximity to failure. So within 5, maybe even less reps of failure. And most people, they stop way short of that. And you see it all the time. People being able to sort of get off a machine, an exercise, they do like a set of 10 hack squats, they get off, they can talk perfectly fine, they're not out of breath, they're doing their next set within 30 seconds, they're chatting while they're doing the exercise. This is just junk volume, and 10 good, decent quality sets will win against 25 junk sets any day of the week. People that just go in, try and get a bit of a pump and then leave the gym, they're never going to get anywhere. So before you even think about adding anything else, make sure that you improve the quality of each and every lift. And I'm talking your form, your control, your proximity to failure, so your intensity. Make sure all of that stuff is on point before you just start blindly adding sets. And remember, I was saying that there are 2 sides to this equation. So right now we're talking about the stimulus side, making sure that the quality of what we're doing is really, really high. But that also brings with it fatigue. And we do need to discuss and think about that in a bit more detail. If you've been lifting for a while and you're interested in the science behind lifting, you might have already heard of the term stimulus to fatigue ratio. It's something that Mike Israetel popularized as a way to be able to quantify, measure how exercises are making us feel, whether muscle groups are recovering in time for the next time we train them, and so on. So if we're trying to build muscle and we're chasing a stimulus, there is going to be some fatigue buildup. It is the cost of doing business. It's inevitable. But the goal is to try to have maximum stimulus with minimum fatigue. And I always try to think about muscle building a bit like a dimmer switch, right? So 2 sets of bench press might be enough to turn your dimmer switch, so your stimulus, up to 100%. You can absolutely add a 3rd or a 4th set, but that isn't going to turn your dimmer switch on any more than 100%. You can keep turning the switch, but it could break, which is the fatigue side of things, right? So the stimulus that you get from exercises needs to be listened to. You need to listen to your body, and I'll teach you how to do that a little bit later on in the video. But you don't need to get greedy and think about leaving the gym absolutely screwed for it to be a good session, right? If the amount of training that you're doing creates more fatigue than your body can recover from, it is going to slow down your progress. You want to be watering a plant rather than drowning it, right? You need enough water going into the plant pot to give the plant what it needs to grow. But if you pour too much water into it, the plant is going to die. And on that happy note, let's move on to why volume differs from person to person. Each and every person has their own unique recovery capability, and that varies for many different reasons. Things like genetics, maybe they're able to sleep a little bit longer each night, maybe they're just less of a stress head, maybe their lifestyle is a bit more chilled, maybe it's not as hectic, they're not rushing around having to look after kids and manage a busy job. All of these things play into your ability to be able to recover from training. So stress is stress is stress. At the end of the day, you have one pot to draw from. Training's going to take a little bit from that. And then everything else is like, okay, so how much other stuff is going to be taken out of my pot because of all of my other commitments and stress and sleep and all that kind of stuff, right? So hopefully that makes sense. It's also going to vary depending on your nutrition and training phase. So if you are in a calorie deficit, your recovery capacity is going to be a little bit less because you haven't got the fuel coming in. So maybe volume might have to come down in a phase like that. Maybe you're just going through a phase where you're deciding to push the intensity a little bit harder, and therefore you can't recover from as much because you're pushing yourself a little bit more. So maybe volume comes down there. Similarly, if intensity isn't being pushed quite so hard, maybe your body can handle a little bit more volume. It is completely individual and specific to each person. And I'm going to get on to how you go about understanding this for you. But before I do that, there are some other things that also impact the amount of volume you're able to do as well. So compounds versus isolation exercises. Probably doesn't surprise you that something like a barbell back squat, where you've got a load of load on your back, it's coming through your spine, it's using multiple muscle groups, is going to be more fatiguing than something like a leg extension, right? They both hit your quads. Squats obviously hit other muscles as well, but you can't say that one squat set is the same fatigue as one leg extension set, right? And I will be covering exercise selection in another video in this series, so make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss that. There's also machines versus free weights as well. So probably unsurprising that a machine that keeps you nice and fixed and stable is going to be a bit less fatiguing than a dumbbell movement that you're having to stabilize and use other muscles with as well. And using things like intensity techniques as well. So if you can and have the time, straight sets are probably going to be the best bang for your buck in terms of your progress. But intensity techniques like drop sets, myo rep sets, and things like that can be used to top up that volume a little bit without using up too much extra time in your workout. But how are you going to know if you're doing too much volume or too little volume? If only there was someone here that's going to talk to you about all that stuff. Oh, wait, he's right here. Here are some telltale signs that you are doing too much volume. Your performance isn't improving. You have consistent soreness that doesn't leave. You start to get niggling aches and pains in your joints and your connective tissues. Maybe your sleep isn't particularly good. Your motivation to train has dipped. Listen to all of this stuff. it's probably a sign you're doing too much. And how you know you're doing too little is kind of the opposite, really. So you're always feeling fresh, you're not progressing, it feels very, very easy session to session. Maybe you're just, say you're doing 3 sets of 10, you're matching every single set, 10, 10, 10. That is a telltale sign you're probably not pushing things as hard as you need to be. And there's just no meaningful stimulus in the muscle. So you're just not getting much of a pump, disruption, or any kind of sensation that you've trained it. Then you're doing probably too little, and you could do with just bumping things up a little bit. And the absolute key thing here is just always use your body as a guide. It will tell you if it's feeling tired. It will tell you whether your mood's low. It's going to tell you whether you don't want to train. It's going to tell you if you feel fresh. Listen to it and adjust according to what it's telling you at that point in time, right? And I know what you're thinking. How do I go about measuring this? There must be a way. Yes, there is. And I'm going to talk about it right now. So here is how I adjust volume for my clients. Each and every set, we gauge the readiness and stimulus. And after they've done their sets for that exercise, they will grade themselves on their readiness. So did they feel fresh, okay, or fatigued? Fresh is easily beat their performance. Okay is, just about match. Maybe it was a bit of a challenge. Fatigued is drop in performance, didn't really feel particularly good. Stimulus, they grade from minimal, which is kind of, didn't really do much at all. Low, which is kind of like, felt like I did something. Medium is like, pretty much where we want it, bang on the money. Yeah, felt my chest, really get a decent pump there. High is like, wow, my chest is like bursting out of its skin, which is okay, but we don't really want to ride that out for too long. I use this then to guide me. So if I'm getting lots of freshers and lows, I might increase volume. If we're getting loads of like fatigues or not particularly ready or okays and like the stimulus is low, then maybe we need to reduce that a little bit. And every client is very, very different. I have clients that need less than 10 sets. I've got clients that need more than 20 sets. And volume is going to change over time. So right now, as an example, I am injured. My shoulder is screwed. And I've had to drop back a lot of my volume just to help that to recover, because I probably pushed a little bit too much into the fatigue side of things, trying to chase stimulus that probably wasn't getting much else from that. So just be careful that you can dig yourself into a hole if you try and just chase more and more and more, and just be okay with your volume needing to change depending on the situation or the training phase that you're in. So here are the final takeaways. My advice would be, take your existing training volume and cut it in half, because most people are doing way too much, and that is the thing that is holding them back from making progress. So I would start with super low volume, because you can always add. If you start too high, you can't take volume away, and you've almost sort of hit your ceiling before you've even started, right? Focus on quality first. So make sure that you are training within close proximity to failure, within 5 reps away from failure. Make sure that your execution of every single exercise is on point. You're not just going through the motions. You're not able to talk while you're doing your sets. You're not getting off an exercise and not out of breath at all. You're only needing 30 seconds rest between each set. You're not seeing your reps drop off from set to set. These are all signs of poor quality training that need to be improved before you start adding volume. And the last one is, only start adding if you are recovering. So make sure that you're starting with low volume, you've got that quality right, and then check in and think, okay, am I making progress? Is progress stalling? Have I got any niggling aches and pains? Have I got any soreness that's carrying in from session to session to session? Use that to create this bigger picture of, okay, so how much do I actually need? Forget what the studies say. How much do I actually need? So there should be loads for you to go out there in terms of making volume very specific to you, so you don't have to just follow some influencer plan or just do what the science has told you to do. This is very, very practical stuff that you can take into your training and be able to improve it over time. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be covering way more stuff in the future. The next episode is all about exercise selection and how you go about picking the best ones for you. Thanks for watching.